Good morning and welcome to Kramer's Corner with Daily Technical Update. It is the 10th of July. It's very early morning. I had to do it early morning here today. I didn't do it yesterday. Apologies about that, but circumstances made that this is how it's going to play out. So this video is for educational purpose only. There's no advice or recommendation whatsoever intending doing this. So let's start with it. And yes, we had bullish day on the US market yesterday, and Nasdaq almost made, well, it actually made a new all-time high, didn't close all-time high. There's still divergence on the RSI, but if it breaks above its falling trend line here on the RSI, then I think it will also cancel that. It still have to take out this peak here, and if it does, well, then there is more upside potential for Nasdaq 100. Looking at the weekly, we are in a bullish trend. It has broken its trend line there, and we are in a positive sentiment. There's no divergence on the weekly, so it could mean that we will push higher in coming days and weeks. On the S&P 500, didn't close higher. It did push a little bit back, and there's no divergence on the RSI. Positive sentiment indicating likely higher levels. Dow Jones, if it takes out the previous peak here from a few days ago, well, then it's probably also going to take out the peak here from back earlier this year in March. Looking at the Asian market and Seng, that hasn't started trading just yet, at least not in our time. It closed yesterday just above the 23,827, testing the support there. But if it does close below 23,690, well, then we could be in for a correction that could take it down to around 23,000. If we're looking at the CFD, which is trading here today based on the actual future, well, it's testing this rising trend line here. Still in a bullish trend though, and there's slightly divergence, so it's a little bit up in the air. I would be cautious, but if it starts moving higher above 24,500, then I think we'll see a bullish trend to resume. Nikkei maybe in for a correction. Here's the future. Could dip it down below 39,000. However, we are in a bullish trend and positive sentiment indicating likely higher levels after a correction. EuroStoxx yesterday had a very good day, 1.4% almost higher. Sorry. Closed above resistance, RSI back above 60 threshold, meaning now positive sentiment. Likely to push higher in the coming days and weeks towards 5,600, possibly challenging the previous peak here, 5,568. Very strong bullish trend indeed. That is not going to be demolished unless we push back below 5,340. Just a little bit pre-market there. We are setting back a little bit, but yes, the CFD is actually challenging that peak there from May. Setting back a little bit. I think the next push, it will be higher towards 5,580. DAX also pushed higher, canceled its top and reversal pattern over here. It was a minor correction. Bullish trend resumed and confirmed by RSI above 60 threshold, so there is higher levels inside 25,000 on the actual index. Is not unlikely, and if we say, well, this could give energy to 138.2, projection at 25,025, possibly up to 25,360. On the FX side, euro dollar still dancing around or just above the 38.2 retracement. If it takes out 118.30, the peak here, well, then we are looking at 119, 120. I think we will get there eventually, but it's just a question about how big a correction will we get here when we're talking about the lower rising trend line. Will it test it or will it push higher? We could still see a correction lower if it takes out the lows here at 116.80. Well, then we're looking at 115.90, possibly a little bit lower, but the bullish trend will remain intact. The sterling dollar dipped to the 61.8 retracement at 135.20 and then bounced, and I think it will keep bouncing. Let's remove this one. it will keep bouncing and test the previous peak and possibly also push higher towards 139, unless it takes out the lows here from a few days ago at 135.20. Euro sterling still dancing sideways in this range here, and what I will do, I actually say, okay, if it takes out the peak there at 86.70, bullish trend will resume towards 87.50, possibly higher, or if it takes out this range here, 85.95, then we will have a larger correction down to around 85.50, 85 and a quarter. Dollar yen, well, it closed above the resistance, but then it dropped back again. So it's really up in there. The key interesting thing here, key thing to notice is that the RSI actually did not close above 60 threshold. So it's really fragile here. Will it slide back? I think we could be caught range bound here in this region around 145, 147. However, if it takes out the peak from yesterday at 147.20, well, then we will see a massive move towards 148.65, possibly up in the range around 150. Euro sterling seems to be a little bit tired here. Exhaustive move. We have, let's check. Just for the argument's sake, well, we do have some divergence now on the RSI, just 75.49. So this level here is actually lower than over here. It's just slightly, but it also means we are in exhaustion mode, and I think we could see a setback to around 170. However, if it takes out the peak there from yesterday, well, then there's still room up to 175, 176. Aussie yen. Excuse me. Aussie yen also spiked above the 200 moving average and resistance here at 95.75, but closed below yesterday, and now we are trading a little bit lower again, so we could see it sliding back to 95, 95.84. However, if it takes out that hammer-like inverted hammer-like pattern there, or shooting star as we can also call it, it should actually have a longer shadow or a wick, but it looks like a bit of a top and reversal pattern going on. So we are still having a slight divergence, still see the RSI values declining, meaning we could be in exhaustion. This 200 moving average seems to be too close above. Also sterling yen spiked up to just below 200 and just below the 199.95 resistance that goes way back, and the upper rising trend line here. So expect a little bit of a setback, possibly down to test the lower rising trend line. Aussie dollar, well, it's really strange what's really going on, but I think it's due to this 200 moving average coming down there, trying to drag it lower. If it takes out 64.85, then I think we will see a push lower. And what we can do, and let me just demonstrate that. I actually used to have it on, but I removed it. So then we are looking at levels in the region around 64.20. However, if it can get back above the 65.90 here, well, then there's room up to 66.50. But it's really this weird behavior because we have the 55 100 moving average up. We have positive sentiment on the other side, which actually should indicate higher levels, but we have the 200 moving average weighing on it. Dollar Canada bounced to the 61.8 retracement, which we talk about. It could do 137. If it takes out the peak from yesterday, well, then it's probably also going up to 137.45 or 50, where we have the 55 moving average coming down. However, it might be it, and if it starts sliding back below the 136.30.40 level, well, then the downtrend has resumed. But let's see about that here in the next couple of days. The Sterling Canada. Sterling Canada is still trying to get some bouncing momentum. If it takes out the lows here at 134.95, then I think we will see a push below 184. US risk could be moving now. It's again testing the lows here, the support here just below 93. But look at this. 21 moving average about to break below the 55 moving average. All moving averages declining up here at the 100 and the 200, and Let's see, we had the RSI closing below 40 threshold yesterday, but it has already been in negative sin for quite some time. So it seems like we could have really, when it takes out this, which I believe it will, due to all these indicators, well, then we could have a sharp move down to around 92.20 support area. It seems like it could play out the next couple of days. Dollar Swiss barely got up to 80, which is the 38.2 retracement of this downtrend here before downtrend seems to resume. And if it takes out the lows here at the 78.70, well, then we are looking around 77.70. The dollar index bounced to 50%, which is a bit unusual, but we had the falling trend line coming down there that also giving it a pressure. We have the 21 coming down. If it takes out the spike up there at 97.5, then I think we'll see it up to around 98.37. But if it starts sliding back below 96, well, then we are looking at much lower level below 95. Gold is dancing just above the cloud and the rising trend line here, lower rising trend line there, really on a knife's edge. But if it moves down to test 32.45, that is the key support it should hold. And of course also the lower part of the cloud there. But then we have the 100 moving average coming out, so that will also be key. However, if it moves back, if gold moves back above this little peak there, 3,366, I think it also will challenge and possibly also take out 3,400. RSI will be key if it closes above 60 threshold or not next couple of days. So really something to keep an eye on. Silver still needs to take out this peak at 37.32 and support here around 35.40. That they are both key. The platinum seems a weakness. 13.22 key support if it takes down when we're looking at 12.60. Copper had one hell of a ride the past few days, especially on the 8th of July. Spiked massively higher due to tariffs, a lot of volatility. So we got into this range around 550, 560. Let's see what it's going to do. What we can do, we can try to put Fibonacci on it here and see what are we actually talking about. Spiked up down to 50%, then spiked up again. So if it takes out the lows there at 542.5, then I think we'll have the 38.2 retracement at 532.5. But it's really volatile. Looking at the weekly, look at that, it's really a strong move, and we could see copper to move much higher in the coming days and weeks. All moving averages, indicators pointing to higher levels, but expect a lot of volatility, so be careful out there. On the energy side, and let's get WTI crude oil here. Dancing around, trying to get above the 200 moving. I actually expect it to spike up to 38.2 retracement of 69.50. Can still do that, but if it does and close above, then I think there's also potential up to around 72.5, 73. Brent crude oil just below this resistance here at 70.40. Can't really seem to get a mojo intact. And what I will do, I'll just adjust this one and remove this one and this one and this one. So we only have the 786 retracement down here. That is key support. So it's really struggling at the moment to get back up there. I still think we could see a spike up to around 72. The European nat gas slightly rising, could test the 38.2 retracement. Then you have the 100 moving average kind of putting a lid on. So I think the upside will be fairly limited. The US nat gas, well, I think we'll see it testing and possibly taking out, or at least testing the $3 here fairly shortly. I'll remove this one. We still have the support here just around 3.1. Moving on to yields, and the US 10-year Treasury yield that spiked higher just above the 50% of this downtrend here. But it is really tight. Almost got up to the 61.8, but it didn't do that, and the part of cloud also pushed it down, and we can see the 21 coming down. It's only the 200 moving as that pushing higher. So I think we could see a 10-year Treasury yields sliding lower towards 4.25 again, possibly the support here at the lower part of the cloud at 423. On the European yields, we have the 10-year Euro yields. There is potential up to 270. Will we get there? Is debatable. But if it takes out the lows here from a few days ago or last week, actually at the 253, then we could soon be back down here in 245. But in the bigger picture, we are actually just trading sideways between 240 and 270. UK, well, it seems that really this 465, 66, 70, that's really a strong resistance. Got knocked down there again. I know it spiked up a little bit there, spiked up a little bit there. We can actually also try to draw a trend line. It's kind of interesting that it is actually, see it hit there twice, just above the 61.8 retracement. Now I think we'll see it sliding back to at least the 456 support here. On Bitcoin, actually spiked to a new all-time high, but it didn't follow through, neither close above. I think if it takes out the peak from yesterday at 112, 153, well, then I think we'll see it pushing higher towards 120. Ethereum also pushed higher yesterday and pushing higher and testing these just around 2800 resistance, not the strongest one. Positive sentiment on the other side. I think we will see the 2900 being challenged fairly shortly. All right, that's all for today. Have a nice day and talk to you again tomorrow.